On Christmas Eve, my parents handed every gift to my brother's son. They laughed and said I didn't deserve anything. That's when I said 3 words that shocked everyone. They say you'll never forget the moment your family decides you're expendable. For me, that wasn't some dramatic blow-up. It was Christmas Eve, surrounded by twinkling lights and sugar cookies, when I finally understood that my parents would literally throw my children under a bus to protect their golden child. My name is Ethan. I'm 42 now. And before that night, I honestly believed I knew how far my folks would go to play favorites. I was so wrong. I have 2 amazing kids, Lily, who's 10, and Max, 8. They're brilliant, kind, the sort of children who still write thank you notes and genuinely believe in magic. Look, I won't claim they're perfect, but they're good kids. My wife, Sarah, and I have done everything in our power to give them a life full of stability, love, and those holiday traditions I never really grew up with. I truly thought I'd left all that toxicity behind, that I'd built something healthy. It turns out the past has a terrifying way of making its way back in. We live about 3 hours from my parents. Every year, despite our often strained relationship, we'd make the drive for the big family Christmas Eve celebration. Mom would demand we all wear red. Dad would pour spiked eggnog like it was holy water, and the living room would fill with my brothers, their wives, and the grandkids. My oldest brother, Ben, would always arrive late, always pompous, usually with his kid, Jake, in tow. He'd make some excuse about a last-minute business meeting that required a new haircut and a fancy jacket. Ben has always been the golden child. He could forget birthdays, miss major family events, and still be treated like a military hero returning from deployment. Last summer, I spent weeks helping my parents renovate their kitchen when Ben was too busy. I even took time off work to drive Mom to her surgery. No one ever mentioned it. But when Ben posted a photo of his latte art, Mom would instantly comment, "So proud of my boy." It used to sting, you know? But over the years, I just learned to let it go. I found a strange kind of peace in lowering my expectations. This year, though, was different. We arrived a little early. Lily helped me arrange the cookies on a platter, while Max tried to sneak one when no one was looking. Sarah poured chocolate for the kids, smiling through Mom's compliments on how well-behaved they were right now. I really should have known something was off when I noticed the mountain of gifts under the tree. They were piled high, shiny ribbons, glittering paper, tags both large and small. But as I peered closer, something felt wrong. None of them had Lily's or Max's names on them. I rationalized it. Maybe they were in another room. Maybe Mom was doing that thing where she hides some gifts to build anticipation. She used to do that, right? Then Ben arrived, late as usual. Jake, now 13 and growing into this smirky, swaggering teenager, strutted behind him like he owned the place. Ben worked the room like a politician, hugging Mom, fist-bumping Dad, and completely ignoring me. I watched Jake go straight for the tree, exclaiming, "Whoa, that's all for us." Dad winked. "All for the grandkids who made us proud this year." I froze. The grandkids who made us proud. My gut twisted, but I tried not to jump to conclusions. Sarah squeezed my hand. She'd heard it too. Mom ushered everyone into the living room, practically bouncing with excitement. "We wanted to do something really special this year," she announced, "to recognize the grandchildren who have excelled, been top in their class, helpful around the house, and made us very proud." I glanced down at Lily and Max. Lily's bright grin slowly faded. Max shifted uncomfortably. Ben stood behind them, beaming like a proud stage parent, and Jake actually puffed out his chest. Mom handed Jake his first present from Grandma and Grandpa. He tore it open. An iPad. My eyes widened. The next gift was an expensive pair of sneakers. Then a gaming headset. Then a drone. Every single gift. One after another. All for Jake. Different tags, different wrapping, but all addressed to him. Max leaned over to me, whispering, "Are ours coming later?" I couldn't even answer. Then came the kicker. Jake held up the drone and laughed. He looked directly at Lily and Max and said, "I guess you guys weren't good enough this year." My jaw clenched. I looked at Mom and Dad, expecting some kind of correction, some acknowledgement of the cruelty, but Mom just giggled and said, "Oh, he's just teasing." Lily looked like she was trying not to cry. Max stared at the floor. Sarah's face was pale, her lips parted slightly as if she wanted to say something, but she didn't. And me? I didn't make a scene. I didn't shout or flip the table, despite an overwhelming, primal urge to do so. Instead, I took a long breath and slowly stood up. Come on, kids, I said, my voice calm but icy cold. We're going home. Mom blinked. Oh, don't be silly. Dinner's in an hour. We're not hungry, I answered, my voice steady. Come on, get your coats. Lily said nothing, just quietly put on her coat. Max followed meekly, the drone still buzzing distantly in the background. As we left, Ben muttered, "Drama queen." That was it. We drove home in silence. Max fell asleep in the back seat. Lily sat beside him, her head leaning against the window, silent tears tracing paths down her cheeks. Sarah stared out the front window, her hands in her lap, the tension in the car almost unbearable. I didn't speak. I was too busy replaying the entire scene, each time cutting deeper than the last. The arrogance, the giggling, the way my parents smiled through it all, and the raw heartbreak on my daughter's face when she realized she just didn't matter to them. That night, after I tucked the kids into bed and watched Lily clutching the little teddy bear she used to sleep with years ago, I reached for my phone. I stared at the message I was going to send. Not theatrical, not furious, just final. Do not ever invite us again. We are not your punchline. I pushed send, and the ramifications began the very next morning. The text was marked read. No reply, no apology, nothing. I watched the TV for a few minutes, half hoping my parents would realize what they'd done and call. But the only notification I received that morning was from our local pharmacy, reminding me to pick up Lily's allergy medication. Sarah walked into the kitchen, holding 2 mugs of coffee. She handed me one without a word and sat across from me. Are you okay? She asked softly. I slowly nodded, but I wasn't. Something inside me had sprung open. I wasn't just hurt anymore. I was angry. A quiet, deep, sincere anger I hadn't felt in years. And underneath the anger was shame. Not for what I did, but for how long I tolerated it. See, Christmas wasn't the first time my parents had made my children feel invisible. It wasn't the first time they dismissed Sarah or called Ben the second coming of Steve Jobs. But it wasn't until I saw the look on my daughter's face that I knew she understood, that she could feel the difference, and that she was starting to believe it. Over the next few days, I tried to focus on our own private holiday. We played board games, baked cookies, exchanged gifts, and lit the fireplace. But something had changed in the atmosphere, as if a window had been broken open in a room we thought was sealed shut. We tried to move on, but the cold lingered. New Year's came and went peacefully. Then, a week into January, my phone buzzed. It was the group chat my mother had started years ago, simply called Family. It was usually pretty quiet, save for the occasional happy birthday or a blurry snapshot of my father's grilling attempts. But this time, Mom wrote, "Hello everyone. I just wanted to start planning Jake's big birthday weekend. He'll be 14 this year, can you believe it? We're thinking of a ski lodge getaway. Cabins are about $300 a night, but we can split it. Who's in?" I stared at the message, my thumb hovering over the screen. Sarah, putting away groceries, noticed my face. What's wrong? I turned the screen to her. She read it, blinked, and chuckled. It was a bitter, biting sound. They're unbelievable. I didn't respond in the group chat. I didn't say anything. Ben, however, replied a few minutes later. Sounds amazing, Mom. Count me in. And Jake, too. Ethan can probably cover our cabin, too. He still owes me for that laptop I gave him in high school. That wasn't even true. He'd given me an old, broken Dell in senior year because he was getting a new MacBook. Even then, he made it seem like he was doing me a favor. But no one corrected him. Not Mom, not Dad, not my sister Olivia, who chimed in right after. Olivia. Haha, yes. Jake's birthday is basically a holiday. Let's make it big. I didn't react. I exited the group chat that afternoon. A few hours later, my mother called. I let it go to voicemail. Then she texted, "Mom, I can't believe you left the family chat. That's immature, Ethan." I typed and erased at least 4 replies before settling on a single word. Me. The text returned as read. Her response was quick. "Mom, what's your problem lately? This is about the Christmas thing, isn't it? You always overreact." I didn't answer again. I was done explaining things to people who wouldn't listen. But I didn't know how deep the partiality ran until a week later, when Lily came home from school with a folder full of class assignments. She was thrilled, her vitality finally returning. "Guess what?" she asked, holding up the folder. "I got picked for the school STEM fair." I grinned. "That's awesome, Elle. What are you going to build?" I want to make a solar-powered oven, she explained. My teacher said it was a smart idea. Sarah and I talked her up all evening. We got some supplies online, printed out schematics, and even started designing presentation boards. That weekend, I shared a snapshot of her doodling ideas at the dining table. Just a quiet father moment, nothing flashy. The caption said, "Proud of my little engineer." A day later, my sister Olivia shared a photo of Jake clutching a basketball. Olivia's caption read, "My nephew equals the next NBA MVP. Sorry, not sorry." Then Mom commented on her post, "Genius boy. We're so proud of you, Jake." Silence. Sarah noticed first. "They didn't even like your post." I shrugged. "It's fine." But it wasn't. Because 2 days later, Lily came to me, looking perplexed. Grandma posted a picture of Jake on Facebook and said he was the smartest grandkid. I froze. When did she post that? This morning, Lily said gently. He won something at school. A spelling thing. She wasn't sobbing, but her face had that vacant look I'd seen around Christmas. That silent, dejected perplexity that children experience when confronted with something too large to comprehend. I drew her closer. "Hey, you're amazing, okay? And I will always be proud of you." She nodded against my chest, but I could feel her body stiffen. The next day, I called my mother. She answered with the same tone she usually used when she believed I had something to apologize for. "Well, look who finally decided to call. Did you really post that Jake is your smartest grandkid?" I asked, my voice calm, but I was not. "Oh, come on, Ethan. It's just a figure of speech. You're really taking things too personally these days. You know Lily saw that, right? She's a child. She'll get over it." That was the moment something inside me changed. "No," I said gently. "She shouldn't have to get over it." There was a pause. "Ethan, you're blowing this way out of proportion. You always have to be the victim." "No," I responded. "I've just stopped pretending it doesn't hurt." Another pause. Then she said something that would stick with me for the rest of the year. "Well, maybe if you raised your kids to stand out more, they'd get the attention you want so badly." I did not shout. I did not argue. I simply hung up. Sarah was in the doorway. She'd heard the entire thing. She came over, sat next to me, and whispered, "We're done with them, right?" I nodded. But of course, it was not over. 2 weeks later, in February, I received a letter from my parents. Not a card, not an apology, but a letter. It was written in my father's handwriting. It was clean and cold. "Ethan, we're disappointed in how you've handled things lately. Cutting ties over perceived slights is childish. We hope you'll reconsider your attitude, and remember that family means putting pride aside." My mother had written at the bottom, "Tell Lily and Max we love them, even if they don't always earn it." I did not show the letter to the children. I didn't want them to see the poison in writing. So I showed Sarah. She read it once, then twice, then set it down and was silent for a long time. That night, she asked, "You know what the worst part is?" "What?" "They think they're the victims." I laughed bitterly. They always have. But even then, I thought we'd hit rock bottom. I thought that letter was the worst it would get. I didn't realize what Ben had been doing behind the scenes. I didn't know what my folks had planned for Easter. I had no idea how far they were ready to go to pretend they had done nothing wrong, or how deep they'd dig before dragging me down into it. Because the treachery that ruined everything had not yet occurred. But it was imminent. And once it occurred, there would be no turning back. The aftermath of the letter hovered over our house like a dense fog. For weeks, everything I did, every dish I washed, every meeting I attended at work, every bedtime story I read, had a faint background noise of the sentence my mother had written at the bottom of the page. "Even if they don't always earn it." Lily didn't see anything, but she could feel it. I could see it in the way she hesitated to show us her schoolwork now. Max glanced at her before asking for help with homework, as if he was afraid his older sister would snap. She never did. However, the brightness in her stride had dimmed, as if someone had taken her pride and examined it with disfavor. I was drowning in guilt and frustration, not because I thought I was wrong, but because I had allowed things to go this far, by allowing my children to love people who could not love them back in the way they deserved. By the middle of February, Sarah and I sat down one night after the kids went to bed, the TV gently buzzing with a culinary competition. Neither of us was looking. She reached over and hushed it. "I know you're spiraling," she remarked gently, "but you've got to pull yourself out of this. You did the right thing walking away." I nodded slowly. I feel like I let them steal something from me, from the kids. They didn't steal it. They tried, but you stopped it in time. You protected them. It didn't feel like it. But the interaction ignited something. Not a rush of motivation, not some huge phoenix rise from the ashes event, just a small click in my head. A simple choice to quit waiting for validation from my family. If they weren't going to be the community behind my children, I'd construct one from scratch. So I started small. I offered to chaperone Lily's STEM club one Friday after school. It felt strange at first. I was the only father there, surrounded by enthusiastic mothers and a slightly harried science teacher who seemed pleased simply to have another adult around. Lily smiled as she spotted me in the hallway. "You came?" she whispered, half ashamed and partly excited. I stayed in the corner, primarily assisting youngsters with taping down poster boards or testing circuits that were shorting out. But I noticed that Lily stood a little taller that day. She raised her hand more and explained her solar oven idea to two of the younger kids who were struggling with their own. "When we got in the car," she added, "it was cool that you were there." It hit me harder than I expected. Later that week, Max came home and mentioned a soccer skills session he wanted to attend. It was early Saturday morning, which usually meant cartoons and pancakes, but I signed us both up. I hadn't kicked a soccer ball in years, but Max wasn't concerned. He simply wanted to do something with me. And gradually, life began to alter. I joined a local dads club that focuses on community involvement and mutual support, rather than one that gathers to drink beer and gripe. We made toy packages for children in hospitals, organized cleanup days at local parks, and even sponsored a Dad and Me event at the library where I saw Max read the BFG aloud to 3 other kids like a miniature motivational speaker. Meanwhile, I became more focused on my work. I was a mid-level project manager for a logistics software company. And while I was always good at it, I never sought to improve. I'd spent too many years trying to keep my head down and seeking acceptance from the wrong people. With nothing to lose, I moved forward. I offered to head a difficult cross-departmental program that had been stuck for months. I stayed late, understood the elements of the system that I'd always avoided, and accepted responsibility when things broke. My supervisor took note. At the following all-hands meeting, he addressed me by name. "Ethan's been quietly keeping this whole operation afloat," he told me. "If you've benefited from faster rollouts this quarter, thank him." The Slack messages began to arrive. Not just accolades, but possibilities. Someone in another department informed me about a product pilot. Another person offered to suggest me for a leadership fellowship. I wasn't used to it, but I didn't dismiss it. Sarah was doing well at home, too. She'd taken on some freelance consulting work, leveraging her marketing skills to assist local firms with branding and outreach. She'd started conducting Zoom calls from the guest bedroom, her voice clear and confident. "You're different lately," she told me one evening. "It's like you're finally letting go of the weight." And I was, slowly, because here's something I didn't expect, breaking off my parents and siblings. It stung. Of course it did. But it also created space. Space to breathe, think, and develop. However, this does not imply that the past has been tranquil. My sister Olivia messaged me on Instagram in early March. No phone call, no text message, just a DM with a screenshot of a photo Sarah had shared of Lily's completed solar oven project. Lily was standing next to it, beaming as sunshine reflected off the aluminum panels. "My little innovator, first place in the district showcase." Olivia's response alongside the screenshot said, "So, we're just pretending none of this drama happened now." I did not respond. 10 minutes later, another message arrived. Jake wanted to congratulate Lily. "He's matured, you know." I didn't answer because I knew what this was. A test, not a ceasefire. An invitation to crawl back so they could pretend everything was a mistake. I erased the message. A week later, Ben called me. I nearly didn't pick up, but curiosity got the best of me. "Hey, bro," he said as if nothing had occurred. "Long time." I waited. "So listen, Mom and Dad are planning a family Easter brunch." He stated they were wondering if you'd want to come by. Clear the air. Start fresh. "Did they tell you to call me?" No. He was lying. I just thought it was time. What exactly would I be clearing the air about? He paused. "I mean, come on, man. You got real sensitive over some gift mix-up. Jake's a kid. He jokes around. And Mom and Dad, look, they love your kids. You know that. They just show it different." I let the stillness continue. "Afterwards," I said, "do you even remember what Mom wrote in that letter?" He laughed. "Letters? Who reads letters anymore?" I hung up, But the call bothered me because it wasn't only about me. Easter was approaching and Lily and Max had inquired whether we would be doing anything with the whole family this year. They didn't miss the drama, but they did miss the sense of belonging. And I wanted to give them that back. Not via forced vacations or bogus apologies, but by establishing something better. That week, Sarah and I decided to hold our own Easter brunch. We invited 3 of Lily's STEM buddies and their families. Max invited 2 soccer friends. Sarah contacted a coworker who was new to town and had twin girls. We bought folding tables, strung lights, decorated eggs, and made much too much food. I even borrowed a rabbit suit from the community center and wandered around the backyard like an idiot for 2 hours throwing out candy. And you know what? It was the nicest holiday we had had in years. There was laughter and genuine friendliness, but no forced grins or passive-aggressive comments. Just pure bliss. Lily came up to me, flushed, and exclaimed, "Dad, this is the best Easter ever." And that's when I realized we hadn't just left anything behind. We were creating something fresh. Of course, the past was not finished with us yet because 2 days after that brunch, I received a certified letter from a law firm. And when I opened it, the headline chilled my blood. It was a notification of cancellation of financial arrangement. And at the bottom, in my father's signature, were 5 words that would ignite the ultimate conflict. Reconsider your attitude or else. At first, I wasn't sure what I was looking at. I sat at the kitchen table holding a certified letter in one hand and a cold coffee in the other. Sarah stood behind me, silently reading over my shoulder. The letterhead was from a mid-sized law practice 2 towns away, one I somewhat recognized from a billboard on the road. Termination of informal family agreement, effective immediately. The wording was stiff, frigid, and somewhat ludicrous in its attempt to appear professional. It stated in far too many words that any future support arrangements, informal or formal, between myself and my parents were now null and invalid. According to the letter, Gregory M. has repeatedly taken judgments that go against the expectations of mutual respect and participation. It concluded, should you choose to re-engage in a productive and respectful manner, financial considerations may be renegotiated in good faith. Sarah blinked. What financial agreement? She queried. Right. There had never been a formal paper, no handshake bargain, or verbal agreement. But years ago, when we were still struggling to make ends meet, I helped my parents get out of a serious mess. Back in 2014, my father's construction supply firm was delinquent on taxes. Something about a misfiled return and penalties that grew quickly. He owed nearly $42,000 in overdue taxes and late fines. He called me in a panic. Sarah and I had recently sold our first tiny property in the suburbs and relocated closer to the city. We'd made a tiny profit and saved most of it. But when my father called, panicked and ashamed, I did not hesitate. I issued a $20,000 check to cover the first IRS deadline, then co-signed a short-term loan in his name to assist them restructure the remainder. I never asked for it back. He promised, of course, I'll make this right, son. But I wasn't expecting anything. I assumed it was just what you did for your family at the time. That is what I did. And over time, they came to regard that gesture as something they had done for me. I'd hear it in small comments. Well, if we hadn't helped you get into that neighborhood, or you forget, we've always supported you when we could. They altered the tale, which I allowed them to do until now, since they were weaponizing it. They were now arguing that I had breached a financial arrangement due to my attitude. Sarah read the letter again and carefully laid it down as if it could explode. They're preparing for something, she explained. Something bigger. I nodded. My heart pounded, but my mind was clear. For the first time in my whole nightmare, I saw everything for what it was. It wasn't about damaged feelings anymore. This was calculated. Ben most likely helped write it or advocated for it. Despite spending most of his adult life relying on his father's money, he always considered himself as the family's businessman. If they were formalizing things now, putting words on paper, and establishing legal positions, that meant they weren't just cutting me off. They planned to completely eliminate me. That night, I walked into our storage room and pulled out a box that I hadn't touched in years. Old bank statements, email printouts, and a manila folder titled, Dad IRS Loan 2014. I had kept it out of habit, not paranoia. But as I flipped through the documents, I felt something flash. There it was, the signed promissory note from the credit union, my name co-signed, the payment history, a wire transfer receipt, and most significantly, an email from my father with the subject line, needed help, just until we rebuild. His message was as follows: Ethan, I don't know what I'd do without you. I'll make this right. Once we finish the new contract in July, we'll square up. I promise. I gazed at that sentence for a long time, since in their reality that promise had faded. However, now I had a paper trail. Over the next week, I made little movements. First, I contacted Jillian, a lawyer with whom I had previously worked on a contract issue. She wasn't glamorous, but she was focused and thorough. I forwarded her scanned copies of the letter, email, and loan documentation. She phoned me the next morning. This isn't a financial termination, she said. It's a setup. What do you mean? They're trying to preempt any legal claims you might make by framing this as you violating their expectations. They're hoping to make any countersuit look like petty retaliation. Do I have a case? You have a very strong case, she explained, especially if they ever took funds or services without documented repayment. And if this goes to court, that email alone could wreck them. I felt a sense of peace flow through me. No joy, no vengeance, just clarity. For years, I believed that family turmoil was limited to the home. Raise your voice or push back, and you become the problem. But now I saw it for what it truly was. They'd treated guilt as cash, love as a loan with interest, and my silence as consent. And they were going to find out that I was no longer quiet. Sarah and I began plotting, not vengefully, but with purpose. We discussed ways to safeguard our children, possessions, and time. We transferred some money to a new account, and the house deed into both of our names equally. Previously, it had only been mine for lending reasons. We also sat down with Lily and Max. We didn't tell them everything, just the facts in a way they could grasp. Grandma and Grandpa are upset with Dad. I told them. And they've decided not to talk to us right now. Lily frowned. Because we didn't come to Easter? No, sweetie, Sarah said. Because we stopped letting them treat us unfairly. Max said, Are we still allowed to miss them? That one touched home. I nodded. Of course, but just because someone's family doesn't mean they're always safe to be around. And it's okay to feel sad about that. The kids handled it better than we expected, honestly better than I had when I was their age. And part of me felt proud that we were interrupting the pattern now, before it solidified into something they would carry into their own families later. Meanwhile, I started capturing everything. I copied previous messages, screenshotted Facebook comments, saved voicemails from my father, and made casual comments like, Glad you're the reliable son, or, I knew I could count on you to clean up Ben's mess. I dug up correspondence from 2019 when I helped them restructure their automobile loan, another financial courtesy they'd conveniently forgotten. Jillian assisted me in drafting a cease and desist notice to the legal firm. Nothing confrontational, simply a formal record stating that I questioned their assertions and intended any future correspondence to be handled through legal procedures. The letter was sent by courier, and 2 days later, Sarah's sister Janine contacted her unexpectedly. My parents had apparently been chatting softly behind the scenes to extended relatives, neighbors, and acquaintances. And they weren't simply altering history. They painted me as unstable. He's unraveling, Mom explained. Apparently, since we quit enabling him, he started acting out. She always coddled him, Dad explained on another conversation. Now he acts as if we owe him the world. Sarah received texts from 2 common acquaintances who we used to see at church, wondering whether we were all right. They're starting the smear campaign, she told me. But what they didn't comprehend was that they weren't dealing with the same son they had previously guilted into silence. They were dealing with a parent, a spouse, a man who had finally figured out the game and had the receipts to show it. And then the opportunity arrived, not from them, but from Ben. Because hubris has a strange habit of opening doors when you least expect it. It was April. I spotted it while reading through LinkedIn during a work break. Ben had tagged himself in a post from a mid-sized investment organization. Proud to announce our latest partner collaboration with McTavish Build Group. Excited to spearhead the expansion into the residential solar market. McTavish Builders Group. That name stopped me in my tracks, since McTavish was the corporation my father had long desired to deal with back in 2014. He had bid on one of their projects and lost. He said it nearly ruined his financial flow for the year. And now Ben was establishing a partnership under his name for solar projects. Lily's scientific project came into my mind. I clicked through. The alliance was fresh, new. The ink hadn't yet dried. Then I saw it. One of McTavish's promotional illustrations. A representation of a smart solar cabin concept with the pitch influenced by real-world STEM inventors. At the bottom was a schematic that was virtually identical to Lily's solar oven idea. Not hers. Clearly modified, polished, and professionally drawn. But the mechanism, angle of the reflectors, and heat absorption material all matched her notes. Exactly. I sat in startled silence. Then I began connecting the dots. Sarah had made Lily's project images public many weeks ago. We hadn't given it any attention, but someone had noticed and utilized it. Ben had stolen my daughter's work, claimed it as his own, attached it to a commercial agreement, and was now ready to profit from it. That was the moment when the strategy came together. Not just to fight back, not just to defend, but to reclaim everything and ensure no one saw it coming. My heart was no longer beating when I contacted Jillian again. It was not wrath. It wasn't a panic. It was about focus. I sat across from her in her clean, quiet office with the sun streaming in through half-closed blinds, and laid out the McTavish partnership post, the solar oven diagram, screenshots of Lily's original sketches, photos, and Sarah's social media timeline. Jillian did not even blink. "This is theft," she stated frankly. "And if it's used in a business context, it's corporate theft, IP infringement, possibly fraud." I nodded. I don't want to sue them for millions. I just want it public. I want it undeniable. She leaned back. "Then we'll start with a cease and desist to McTavish. Get them on record as distributing stolen content. If they're smart, they'll panic and pull out. And Ben." She smiled thinly and sharply. "Oh, he's going to learn what it feels like to be publicly embarrassed, thoroughly." Over the next 2 weeks, everything progressed quickly. Jillian wrote a brilliantly harsh letter detailing the original creation date of Lily's project, the timestamp postings, the competition victory, and the virtually identical rendering utilized in the McTavish promotional presentation. We did not send it by email. We sent it as a legitimate legal package, via courier, directly to McTavish's legal department and CEO. Within 4 days, I received a call from Stephen Day, the director of operations at McTavish. "Mr. M, I'm calling to apologize," he began, his voice tense with anxiety. "We were unaware the design came from a minor school project. Had we known..." "You didn't ask where the design came from. We trusted our partner's submission. Mr. Ben M represented it as his own prototype." My throat clenched. "He claimed to have invented it?" "Yes, sir. I'd like to assure you that as of this morning, we've frozen all rollout plans tied to that partnership, and we are internally reviewing all content and contracts connected to it." "Good," I responded, "because if this goes to court, I'm bringing Lily with me. I'll let the press photograph her standing next to the model she built on our kitchen table with tin foil in a shoebox." He breathed forcefully. "There's no need for that. Please, Mr. M, let us fix this." They didn't just end the alliance. They issued a formal apology. The next day, it went live on their website and social media outlets. "We deeply regret the use of intellectual material that was not properly sourced. We have since discovered that a design submitted by a recent collaborator was in fact created by a young innovator, Mia, as part of a school STEM fair. We commend her brilliance and have made a charitable donation to support her school's science program in her honor." They gave $27,000 to Lily's school that morning. I showed her the post. She read it 3 times and whispered, "They said my name." Max cried, "You're famous now," from the hallway. Sarah wept. I did not. I was too concentrated on what was still to come. McTavish did the right thing, but Ben doubled down. He sent a passive-aggressive tweet. "Jealousy is a disease. Real creators rise above the noise." Then he began spreading his version across the family, claiming that we had twisted a child's school project to ruin his career, that we were spiteful, and that we were using the children as pawns. But Ben didn't comprehend that McTavish's internal probe was more than just public relations. It was also legal. 2 weeks later, he received a formal letter from their attorneys requesting complete disclosure of all previously submitted material, certification of originality, and the immediate termination of the cooperation. His name was removed off their website. The LinkedIn post had vanished. I learned via a common contact, one of Ben's old college classmates, that 3 additional firms quietly ceased business with him after hearing what transpired. No one wants to be associated with a person who stole from a 12-year-old and was caught by a publicly traded partner. But the retribution did not end there. Sarah had a wonderful idea. She approached Lily's school administrator and offered a tale. A local girl's scientific project is stolen, a business partner profits from it, and the firm contributes money to set things right. The principal went wide-eyed. Would you be open to a media piece? Sarah grinned. We'd be thrilled. The next week, a local news station captured Lily in her classroom, standing next to her solar oven. She spoke softly but clearly, telling how she came up with the concept, how she tested it in her garden, and how it felt strange at first when someone else sought to claim it. The anchor concluded the piece by reminding us that often the best brains in invention aren't in boardrooms, but in our own classrooms. The video got viral in our community. The school received a torrent of compliments. The PTA described it as the greatest press they'd gotten in years. The nicest thing, however, was when my mother phoned. She did not even attempt to dispute what had occurred. She simply responded, "You didn't have to humiliate the family." I chuckled. "Oh, we're just getting started." I wasn't lying. Remember the promissory note from 2014? Jillian brought a claim in small claims court. It was not about the money. It was about the record. Dad disregarded the notification. So we escalated. The hearing occurred in May. He did not show. Jillian and I submitted the documents, emails, and money receipts. It was calm, methodical, monotonous, and unwavering. We won. Judgment was entered. $20,742.31 plus court costs and interest. I sent a copy to my parents along with a message, since financial agreements are so important to you. It came the day after Ben's story was featured in a national STEM education roundup. One phrase is half buried in red. The corporation ended its collaboration after discovering that the submitted prototype had been created by a local middle school student in a recorded competition. Ben did not show up for Memorial Day weekend at Olivia's. Neither did our parents. We didn't care, since we were no longer just surviving. We were prospering. Lily received a STEM scholarship to attend a summer program at her local university. Max became a goalie for his club league. Sarah's consulting employment skyrocketed. 3 local business owners saw the news article and contacted out, and I was promoted. My firm offered me a leadership role at a new satellite office. Greater salary, greater control, and most importantly, the ability to mold the culture. At the first all-hands meeting, I concluded the presentation with a slide that stated, "Give credit always." Even when no one's watching. People applauded. Some didn't get it, but I did. Sarah did as well. And so did Lily, who watched from the back of the room, smiling quietly. We never communicated with my folks again. Not after the court decision, and not after the school gift. Not after the news story ran around dinner hour, leaving them scurrying to manage the narrative in a town that had already decided. Because in the end, they were not simply cut off. They were forgotten. That, more than anything else, was what they couldn't bear. It was not the letter. It was not the lawsuit. It wasn't the contributions, headlines, or the verdict. It was the quiet. How we stopped protecting ourselves. We stopped turning up to absorb the harm. The way we simply went on without them. And as for Ben, I believe he was taking time off to rebrand. But Lily is creating a solar-powered compost bin for the school garden. And this time, she's working with my lawyer to file for a patent. Because certain names cannot be erased, some sparks cannot be stolen, and some families do not break. Instead, they rebuild stronger, louder, and brighter, without those who always sought to dull them. I hope my tale touched some of you. It has been a long road, and it's still ongoing. I would love to hear your opinions. Have you ever had to choose yourself above your family's expectations, or leave a relationship that was holding you back? Tell me what you think in the comment section. I genuinely want to know.